Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm joining in for the first time with the Just Cards video hop, and I'm excited to be sharing how I created this beautiful floral card. The two stamp sets I will be using to create this card are from Pretty Pink Posh. One is called Hummingbird Thanks and the other one is Pretty Petunias. I'm using a special ink called Ink on 3 because I'm going to be using a no-line watercoloring technique. I'm stamping onto Bristol smooth cardstock, and I will be using very little water in the process, and I find that my real clean color markers blend much better on this paper overall. You can use antique linen distress ink in order to get a light impression if you do not have Ink on 3. And before I begin, I have my reference photo for the coloration I'm going to be using for my petunias off to the side. And if you're interested in what variety this was, I will leave a note below. And I'll also have a blog post in case you want to see additional photos of this project after watching this video. What I'm using is a little palette off to the side, and I'm using a porcelain dish where I have very little water. I find it makes doing watercoloring a lot more efficient for me. And I will have that linked below as well if you're interested in either one of those two items. So my coloring process involved using a number 1 round brush, and first I just applied a little bit of plain water to the edges of the petal and then went back and picked up the pale green color that I'm putting at the very edges of the petal. So I'll go around the entire flower doing just that light green touch, and I'm going to allow it to dry before moving on to any other colors. So I will be switching around a lot to different flowers that I've already stamped in order to make sure that I don't bleed color. And I changed the zoom so you could see a little bit better as to how I'm doing the coloring part. I'm putting some clean water down at the bottom of the petal and then adding in some of the color gradually. And what you see me doing is adding some clean water at the edge and then kind of bringing it back towards the bottom of the petal in order to blend it out. And this way I avoid too much of the green meeting up with the purple, because green and purple can tend to make mud, so I'm trying my best to be very careful not to overlap them too much. After I do finish with the watercolor, I do finish some of the coloring and adding some accents with pencil, which you'll see when I get closer to that part. The actual coloring process took me about 30 to 45 minutes to do, so I have sped this up quite a bit, and because I'm not going to be able to think of enough things to say while I'm doing the same basic coloring throughout the part where I'm doing all the petunias, I'm going to put on a little bit of music, and then I will come back and start doing voiceover again once I get to when I'm coloring the hummingbirds. And now I'm back to the portion where I'm going to finish the hummingbirds. I did intend to actually do this part from start to finish, but apparently I forgot to turn the camera on at the right time. I started coloring in the body itself on the birds with a turquoise green and a light green, and I didn't make it solid so that it would look like there was some variety between the two colors. So I colored the head of the bird, so to speak, in more of the turquoise green and the body in the pale green, then went back over those two and added some of the opposite color to what I'd used so that it didn't end up looking completely solid. On the wings, I am mainly painting them with the color beige, and then I go back with either the turquoise or the green color just to add some variation to the color on the wings so they're just not solid brownish looking. That's what I'm doing right at this point, is adding bits of color in different places to accentuate the bird and not make it look so flat. And I do use the beige for the beak in order to give it a little more color. And also because I'm planning to use the Brother Scanning Cut to die cut all the images out, because I don't have matching dies with either of these two sets. I need to make sure there's enough contrast in the colors used on the bird, or else it may make it more difficult for the machine to recognize that. What I did have to do at the end is come back and use a colored pencil to define the edges of the bird and draw a more solid line around them so that the machine would actually recognize and cut them correctly. And now I'm going to create the background for the card. I'm using a piece of Ranger watercolor paper on the textured side for the background, and I'm just simply putting down 3 different distress inks and using a smooshing technique. I will be drying in between layers so that I can get multiple layers and take advantage of how distress inks are water reactive, and the more times that you add layers, the more interest it adds to the background. And because I'm going to be stamping the sentiment directly onto the background, I'm going to use the MISTI just to be sure that if the first pass attempt to stamp it down does not work, that I will have a stamp in exactly the right place. In this case, I went ahead and stamped it a second time just to make sure it was really dark and black on the textured cardstock. And I'm trimming down this panel a bit because I'm going to add a bit of leave some room for a frame, because I'm going to be putting this onto a black A2 size card base. And now that I have die cut out all the different images, I'm going to be figuring out how to arrange them on the card. I actually cut the stem on the longest of the 2 petunias so that I could have it extend from the bottom. I didn't want to take the time to restamp or actually stamp another image, so since it was going to be covered up by the 3rd flower towards the front, I decided I could get away with just cutting off that stem that you see me gluing right now and glue it down directly to my card panel. For the most part, I'm gluing down everything directly to the card panel. The 2 things that I will not be doing that way will be one of the hummingbirds and of course the one flower that is facing forward, and I popped that up so that it would give it more dimension on the card. At this point, I'm just figuring out placement for the extra leaves that I colored so that there's a little more interest towards the bottom and helps cover up where I cut off the stem. And I'm just using Tombow monoliquid adhesive to do that. I find this is something I reach for and use all the time when I'm creating cards. And now I'm positioning one of the birds so that it looks like it's getting nectar out of that one petunia, and I'm putting the other hummingbird up on top. I popped it up so that it would look like it would be floating or flying above the flowers. And after adhering to the black card base, I decided to add some additional touches. I put a little ribbon on there to hide the die cut that looked a little bit rough, and I'm adding some jewel drops by Nuvo to further embellish the card. And this completes my video. I appreciate you stopping by and hope you've been enjoying all the stops on the hop. Thank you very much for watching.